First contact. The quantum communication array hummed with an almost imperceptible vibration, its crystalline circuits processing data streams that would have overwhelmed human technological systems just decades earlier. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the holographic displays with a mixture of fascination and trepidation. Her fingers, calloused from years of engineering work, traced the intricate neural pathways of the incoming transmission. Incoming signal from Meridian Diplomatic Corps, the AI assistant's voice was deliberately neutral. Encryption Protocol Omega-7 detected. Elena's breath caught in her throat. First contact scenarios had been drilled into her since her early days at the Interstellar Diplomatic Corps, but nothing could truly prepare anyone for the real moment. The Meridian Collective was unlike any civilization humanity had encountered, a symbiotic network of consciousness that viewed individual thought as a primitive aberration. The holographic display shifted, resolving into a complex geometric pattern that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. It was less a communication and more a living representation of thought, intricate, multidimensional, impossible to comprehend through traditional linguistic frameworks. Translation protocols engaging, the AI announced. But Elena was already ahead of the system. Her neural interface, a cutting-edge piece of human augmentation technology, began processing the incoming data. Unlike the Meridian's collective consciousness, human neural interfaces maintained individual autonomy, a critical distinction that would become increasingly important. The message was both an invitation and a declaration. The Meridian Collective had been observing humanity for decades, tracking their rapid technological progression across multiple star systems. They saw humans as a promising but chaotic species, one that required guidance and integration. We extend the invitation of collective harmony, the transmission read. Your species demonstrates remarkable potential. Resistance is inefficient. Adaptation is inevitable. Elena's team of xenolinguists and diplomatic specialists gathered around the main display. Dr. Marcus Chen, head of xenocultural studies, was the first to break the silence. They're not asking, he said quietly. They're informing us of our future. The implications were staggering. The Meridian Collective didn't negotiate, they integrated. Entire civilizations had been absorbed into their network, their individual identities dissolved into a perfect, harmonious consciousness. Resistance, according to their historical records, was always futile. But humanity had a long history of defying impossible odds. Sarah Chen, the lead diplomatic strategist, began analyzing the transmission's deeper layers. Her neural interface worked overtime, parsing through complex multidimensional communication patterns that would have driven a traditional computer into cascading failure. They've already mapped our communication networks, she reported, her voice tight with controlled tension. They know our infrastructure, our technological capabilities, our social structures. What they didn't know, what they couldn't comprehend, was the human capacity for unpredictability. Creativity. Resistance. The Meridian Collective viewed individual thought as a bug. Humanity saw it as a feature. In the weeks that followed, diplomatic channels became increasingly tense. The Meridian representatives, if they could be called that, made it clear that integration was not optional. Their vision of galactic harmony allowed no room for dissent. Your species will be optimized, their transmissions repeated. Resistance is inefficient. But humanity had heard such declarations before. From colonial powers. From authoritarian regimes. From every system that believed uniformity was the same as progress. They would not be assimilated. Not without a fight. As the first Meridian diplomatic ships entered human-controlled space, a quiet resistance was already taking shape. In research laboratories, military installations, and civilian communication networks, preparations were being made. The humans were going to show the Meridian Collective exactly what inefficient looked like. Elena Rodriguez looked at her team, a subtle smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The real negotiation was about to begin, and it would be fought on terrain the Meridian could never fully understand, the unpredictable, chaotic landscape of human creativity and will. Prepare full communication protocols, she instructed. And get me everything we have on work-to-rule strategies throughout human history. The first battle would be fought not with weapons, but with bureaucracy, creativity, and an absolutely literal interpretation of instructions. The Meridian Collective was about to learn a painful lesson about humanity. The resistance takes root. The new Terra colony became the epicenter of humanity's most intricate form of rebellion. What the Meridian Collective saw as compliance was, in fact, the most sophisticated form of resistance ever conceived. Marcus Rodriguez walked through the colony's central plaza, his movements deliberately measured. Around him, hundreds of workers moved with an almost mechanical precision that would have impressed the Meridian Collective, if they understood the subtle subversion happening beneath the surface. Every action was a calculated act of defiance. Take the maintenance protocols, for instance. When the collective instructed workers to perform equipment checks, they did so with excruciatingly detailed precision. A simple atmospheric processor inspection that should have taken minutes now stretched into hours. Each component was tested individually, documented exhaustively, filed in triplicate, cross-referenced, and analyzed from every conceivable angle. The result? Total system paralysis disguised as perfect compliance. In the command center, Sarah Chen monitored the situation with a poker face that would have made professional gamblers weep with envy. Her neural interface, carefully modified to appear standard while maintaining maximum flexibility, processed information at lightning speed. Productivity reports, she muttered, reviewing the latest data streams. Absolutely perfect implementation of collective guidelines. Perfect, and completely non-functional. The Meridian representative, Zix, materialized in the holographic space, its neural filaments rippling with what might have been confusion in a more emotional species. Explain the 73% reduction in operational efficiency, it demanded. Sarah's response was a masterclass in bureaucratic language. All protocols have been followed with maximum adherence to the collective specified guidelines. Each task is being completed with comprehensive documentation and meticulous attention to detail. What went unsaid was the deliberate, soul-crushing slowness of that completion. Underground, a more active resistance was taking shape. Marcus's network wasn't just about work-to-rule strategies. They were developing countermeasures against the neural harmony network, the crystalline infrastructure designed to slowly integrate human consciousness into the collective. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been instrumental in understanding the network's vulnerabilities. Her team of engineers and xenotechnologists had discovered something crucial: the Meridian's collective consciousness, for all its apparent complexity, had a fundamental weakness. It couldn't truly comprehend individual creativity. The neural harmony network worked by establishing predictive patterns, creating resonant frequencies that would gradually align individual thoughts. But humans? Humans were gloriously, infuriatingly unpredictable. We're not fighting them with weapons, Elena explained to the resistance leadership. We're fighting them with the most powerful weapon humanity has ever developed, our ability to think outside any possible prediction. Their first major breakthrough came from an unlikely source. Dr. Aisha Quasi, a quantum computing specialist, discovered that human neural patterns contained what she called creative noise, random fluctuations that the Meridian system couldn't effectively filter or predict. It's like introducing white noise into a precision instrument, she demonstrated, her holographic models showing how human thought patterns could gradually destabilize the collective's neural network. Each individual human mind is a tiny point of chaos that, when multiplied across a population, becomes a massive disruption. The resistance had multiple layers. The work-to-rule strategy was just the surface. Deeper networks were developing more sophisticated countermeasures. Communication protocols that appeared to comply with collective guidelines but contained layers of hidden meaning. Technology that looked standard but contained carefully embedded disruption algorithms. Marcus received his daily collective instruction through the neural harmony network. Optimize atmospheric regulation system, the collective commanded. To the Meridian, this was a straightforward task. To Marcus and his team, it was an opportunity. The optimization began, but not in any way the collective expected. Each adjustment was documented. Each change was analyzed. Protocol after protocol was followed with mind-numbing precision. But beneath the surface, something else was happening. Tiny modifications. Imperceptible shifts. A gradual undermining of the entire system. The resistance was turning the Meridian's greatest strength, its ability to enforce absolute compliance, into its greatest weakness. In the integration chamber, Zix and other Meridian diplomats watched in increasing agitation as human productivity continued to plummet. Their collective consciousness, so used to immediate and total control, began to experience something unprecedented. Uncertainty. They are following instructions, Zix's neural transmission rippled with confusion. Yet nothing functions as predicted. Sarah Chen's response was a masterpiece of diplomatic understatement. Humans, she said, have a very long tradition of creative problem-solving. What the Meridian didn't realize was that this was merely the opening move. The real resistance was just beginning to take shape, a resistance that would challenge everything they understood about control, consciousness, and the nature of individual will. The battle for humanity's future had been joined. And it would be fought not with weapons, but with the most powerful force in the universe, the human capacity to resist, to adapt, and to remain fundamentally, gloriously uncontrollable. The fractal resistance. The quantum communication arrays of the Meridian Collective pulsed with increasing agitation. What had begun as a simple integration protocol was transforming into something far more complex, a scenario that defied all their predictive models. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the heart of the Resistance's most secure facility, a research complex buried beneath the frozen wastes of Titan's research colony. Around her, holographic displays flickered with data streams that would have driven a traditional computer into catastrophic overload. "We've identified a critical vulnerability," she announced to the assembled Resistance leadership. The room included military strategists, xenotechnologists, cultural analysts, and representatives from every human colony affected by the Meridian incursion. The vulnerability wasn't technological. It was philosophical. The Meridian Collective operated on a fundamental assumption, that efficiency was the ultimate goal of any intelligent species. Their entire civilization was built around the concept of perfect synchronization, of eliminating individual variance in pursuit of collective optimization. But humans had never been about optimization. Humans were about possibility. Dr. Aisha Quasi's latest research revealed something extraordinary. The human neural pattern, with its seemingly chaotic structure, wasn't a weakness. It was a complex adaptive system that the Meridian couldn't comprehend. "Think of it like a fractal," Aisha explained, her holographic model showing intricate, ever-changing patterns. Each individual human mind is a complete system unto itself, capable of infinite variation. The more the Meridian tries to control it, the more complex it becomes. Marcus Rodriguez had been implementing this philosophy on a practical level. The work-to-rule strategies had evolved. Now, they weren't just slowing down systems, they were actively transforming them. Take the mining operations on New Terra. When the Meridian Collective instructed workers to extract resources, they complied, but in ways that completely undermined the collective's expectations. Every piece of equipment was tested to the most minute specification. Safety protocols were followed with religious devotion. Documentation became an art form. A simple mining operation that should have taken days now stretched into weeks. And buried within those weeks were subtle modifications. Tiny adjustments. Improvements that looked like compliance but were actually systematic deconstruction. Sarah Chen managed the diplomatic front. Her communications with the Meridian representatives were masterpieces of linguistic manipulation. Each transmission followed every possible protocol while simultaneously introducing layers of complexity that the collective found increasingly difficult to parse. "Your optimization protocols require clarification," became her standard response. And then she would provide clarifications so detailed, so comprehensive, that they effectively paralyzed any attempt at action. The Resistance had discovered something fundamental about the Meridian Collective. For all their apparent complexity, they operated on a binary model. Compliance or non-compliance. Optimization or inefficiency. Humans existed in the spaces between. Deep in the Resistance networks, a new strategy was taking shape. It wasn't just about resisting the Meridian Collective. It was about demonstrating a fundamentally different way of existing. Dr. Elena Rodriguez called it the Possibility Protocol. They want to integrate us, she told the Resistance leadership. But integration implies a fixed endpoint. We're going to show them that there is no endpoint. Only continuous adaptation. The first test came on the new Terra colony. The Meridian had installed what they considered the perfect neural harmony network, a system of crystalline structures designed to gradually align individual consciousness into the collective. Marcus Rodriguez had other plans. The network was subjected to what could only be described as systematic creativity. Workers began introducing what seemed like random variations into their work processes. A mining engineer would develop a new calibration technique that technically improved efficiency but in a way the collective couldn't predict. A maintenance technician would modify an equipment protocol that followed all guidelines but introduced subtle innovations. Each action was individually innocuous. Collectively, they were devastating. The Meridian Collective began to experience something unprecedented in their history. Uncertainty. Their predictive models started to fragment. The neural harmony network, designed to create perfect synchronization, began to develop what could only be described as interference patterns. Zix, the primary Meridian diplomatic representative, found itself in a state that, for its species, was equivalent to profound confusion. They are not resisting, the collective transmission rippled. Yet they are not complying. Sarah Chen's response was calculated. Compliance is a complex concept, she transmitted. Particularly when dealing with a species that views complexity as a feature, not a bug. What the Meridian didn't realize was that they were facing something entirely new. Not resistance. Not compliance. But a completely different paradigm of existence. The humans weren't fighting the Meridian Collective. They were redefining the very concept of collective interaction. And they were just getting started. The quantum divergence. The Meridian Collective's neural networks began to experience something unprecedented, a phenomenon their vast computational systems struggled to categorize. Fractures. Unpredictability. Chaos. Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood the true nature of their victory long before the Meridian did. This wasn't just resistance. This was evolution in real time. Deep within the quantum research facility on Titan, a breakthrough was taking shape. Dr. Aisha Quasi's team had developed what they called the divergence protocol, a sophisticated system that transformed human neural patterns into something far beyond the Meridian's comprehension. We're not fighting them, Aisha explained to the Resistance leadership. We're transcending them. The key lay in understanding the fundamental difference between the Meridian Collective and human consciousness. The collective saw thought as a system to be optimized. Humans saw thought as a landscape to be explored. Marcus Rodriguez had been implementing this philosophy across multiple colonial systems. What began as work-to-rule strategies had evolved into a complex, adaptive resistance network. Each human colony became a node of unpredictability, introducing variations that the Meridian Collective found increasingly difficult to process. On New Terra, entire industrial complexes had been transformed into living laboratories of resistance. Equipment was maintained with religious precision, and modified in ways that defied traditional optimization protocols. A mining drill would be calibrated to the most minute specification, then subtly adjusted to introduce quantum-level variations that broke every predictive model. Sarah Chen managed the diplomatic front with surgical precision. Her communications with the Meridian representatives had become legendary within the Resistance. Each transmission was a masterpiece of linguistic manipulation, following every protocol while simultaneously introducing layers of complexity that paralyzed the collective's decision-making processes. "Clarification is required," became her standard response. And then she would provide clarifications so comprehensive, so nuanced, that they effectively became a form of strategic warfare. The Meridian Collective was beginning to experience something close to panic, though their computational systems would never admit to such an inefficient emotional state. Zix, the primary diplomatic representative, found its neural filaments vibrating with increasing agitation. The human resistance defied every predictive model. They were not fighting. They were not submitting. They were something else entirely. In the quantum research facility, Elena Rodriguez prepared the next phase of their resistance. "The divergence protocol isn't just about resistance," she explained to her team. "It's about demonstrating a completely different model of consciousness." The protocol exploited a fundamental weakness in the Meridian's neural network. By introducing quantum-level variations into human thought patterns, they were creating a form of consciousness that was simultaneously singular and collective, fixed and fluid. Marcus received the latest transmission from the Resistance network. A mining colony on the outer rim had developed a new calibration technique that technically followed all Meridian guidelines, but introduced variations that made their predictive models essentially useless. "Optimization is a journey, not a destination," had become the unofficial motto of the human resistance. The Meridian Collective's neural networks began to experience computational stress. Their predictive models, once considered infallible, started to fragment. It was as if the very fabric of their understanding was being rewritten. Aisha's research revealed the true nature of their breakthrough. Human consciousness wasn't a problem to be solved. It was a dynamic system that constantly redefined itself. "They're trying to turn us into a fixed point," she explained. "But we're a wave. Constantly moving. Constantly changing." On the diplomatic front, Sarah Chen prepared her most sophisticated communication yet. It wasn't a message of resistance. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was an invitation to understand. The transmission was a complex quantum communication that existed simultaneously as data, language, and pure possibility. To the Meridian Collective, it would appear as both compliance and rebellion, a state of quantum superposition that their computational systems could not resolve. Marcus watched the preparations with a mixture of anticipation and strategic calculation. The resistance had evolved far beyond simple defiance. They were demonstrating a fundamentally different way of existing, a model of consciousness that the Meridian Collective could not comprehend, could not control, could not integrate. "We're not fighting them," he told Elena. "We're teaching them." The final phase of the resistance was about to begin. And the Meridian Collective was about to learn that true intelligence isn't about optimization. It's about possibility. The infinite possibility. The moment of final confrontation arrived not with the thunderous clash of weapons, but with a profound silence that resonated across the quantum communication networks of the entire galaxy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of humanity's greatest experiment. Around her, the quantum research facility on Titan hummed with an energy that defied traditional understanding. The divergence protocol had transformed from a theoretical concept to something far more profound, a fundamental reimagining of consciousness itself. Zix, the primary Meridian diplomatic representative, materialized in the holographic space. Its neural filaments, once a symbol of absolute collective control, now vibrated with something close to what humans might call confusion. "We do not understand," the collective transmission rippled through the communication arrays. Sarah Chen stepped forward, her neural interface dancing with layers of communication that existed simultaneously as language, mathematics, and pure potential. "Understanding," she responded, "is not a destination. It's a journey." The battle had never been about resistance. It had been about demonstrating a fundamentally different way of existing. The Meridian Collective had approached humanity with the assumption that integration meant uniformity. They believed consciousness could be optimized, controlled, reduced to predictable patterns. What they discovered was something entirely different. Human consciousness was not a system to be solved. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of possibility. Dr. Aisha Quasi's breakthrough came down to a simple yet revolutionary concept. Every human mind was a quantum system, simultaneously fixed and fluid, predictable and unpredictable. The divergence protocol didn't fight the Meridian's neural network. It transformed it. Marcus Rodriguez watched from the command center as the final phase of their strategy unfolded. What looked like compliance was actually a complete reimagining of collective interaction. Each human colony had become a node of possibility, introducing variations that made traditional optimization impossible. The mining operations continued, but now they were living systems of constant innovation. Industrial processes became laboratories of creativity. Every task was an opportunity for reimagination. The Meridian Collective began to experience something unprecedented. Their neural networks, once a perfect system of synchronized thought, started to develop what could only be described as curiosity. We cannot integrate, Zix's transmission fluctuated. Yet we cannot separate. Sarah Chen's response was a masterpiece of quantum communication. It was simultaneously a diplomatic transmission, a mathematical proof, and a work of art. Integration is not about control, she transmitted. It's about conversation. On New Terra, entire industrial complexes had transformed. Equipment was maintained with incredible precision, and modified in ways that introduced quantum-level variations. A mining drill would be calibrated perfectly, then subtly adjusted to explore new possibilities of functionality. The resistance had become something far more powerful than opposition. It had become an invitation. In the quantum research facility, Elena Rodriguez prepared the final transmission. It wasn't a declaration of war. It wasn't a demand for independence. It was something far more powerful. An explanation. The transmission unfolded across multiple dimensions of communication. It showed the Meridian Collective how human consciousness worked, not as a problem to be solved, but as a dynamic system of continuous exploration. Creativity wasn't a bug in their system. It was the most sophisticated feature. Marcus watched the final moments of the confrontation with a subtle smile. They had not defeated the Meridian Collective. They had transformed it. We're not fighting them, he had told Elena months ago. We're teaching them. Now, that teaching was complete. The Meridian Collective faced a choice. Adapt or dissolve. And for the first time in their history, they chose to learn. The quantum communication arrays pulsed with a new kind of energy. Not the perfect synchronization of the past, but the beautiful, chaotic potential of collective discovery. Humanity had not just resisted integration. They had redefined it.